What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Next Gen Pod. With me are my guys, Jamie Shaw, Joe Tipton of Rivals. How you guys feeling? Jamie, how you feeling this morning?
Man, good. It's we're having a snow day here in the Carolinas, so we're on a delay going to school. Everything's good this way.
How about you, Joe?
Good, man. Woke up early morning pod. Feeling good, had my coffee, and ready to rock and roll.
Now, I don't know when this will be released, but right now, guys, this is 6:30 my time. It is 7:30 their time. But we talking hoops. That's how dedicated we are. First off, about hoops, Kentucky basketball. 5-4 this season. They were ranked number 9 going into the season. Now they're out of the top 25. Jamie, what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, you're looking through this Kentucky team and what they're seeing. They're just it's a lot of stuff going on. Essentially, they're not making shots and they're not getting stops. That's the overall arching thing as to where it's at right now. As a team this past season, they shot 37% from three. They were top 30 in the country. 3-point shooting percentage, 25 attempts per game. This year, they're all the way down to 31%, almost 32% from three, 250th or so in the country. They're only attempting 19 free throws per game. It just doesn't seem that this team has the leadership. It doesn't seem that this team has the accountability coming from the players to give consistent two-way effort. Out there on the court, only creating 11 turnovers per game, which is well into the 200s, nationally ranked. When you look at it, the inability to make shots on the one end and the inability to get stops on the other end, and then just the disconnect in the effort in between is really causing a lot of questions with the makeup of this team. It seems like so far at this point in the season.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely is. I think it's an effort thing, especially when you talk about getting stops, right? Like giving up 90. Gonzaga's a really good team, but giving up 94 points and only putting up 59. To your point of not scoring and not getting stops. I think also against Michigan State gave up 83 points, so only scored 66. Stuff like that. What I've been seeing is just effort, like just a low effort play. I know people talk about the salary cap of that team. I think it was 22 million. That's what's been reported. And to me, regardless of how much money that was being spent, effort doesn't have a price tag. Like if you're getting paid to play, or if you're out there playing, especially in that, just you're just out there hooping, like the effort on the glass, the effort on defense, communicating, really getting into the help side, and just doing the little things. The little things aren't being done every possession. That's why even a close loss to UNC and stuff like that, like they're just not doing the little things on the defense end, or just really connecting offensively, like when they really need a bucket or they really need to execute. It just seems like it's just really off. And it's disappointing to see. It's early, but it doesn't look good. Like that Gonzaga game just did not look like a high major team. Let's just be honest. Like that didn't look like a high major team at all. But Joe, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all those points. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think the part that's frustrating to me is we obviously had very high hopes for this Kentucky roster, and we thought, at least on paper, they were one of the more talented teams in college basketball. And while they still could be, they're not acting like it. And part of it is, and I don't know, Pope is going to have to fix this. A lot of it, okay, yeah, you can like criticize they're not shooting it well, they're not playing together, but then also they're not really playing with much heart either, which is really frustrating. And I don't know the reason I'm not in that locker room, but I think that's one of the main points that they have to figure out. I think right now they're playing each individual player or several individual players are playing selfishly instead of selflessly. And I know people always will look to criticize Mark Pope for the reason behind this, and he probably, has a right to be criticized. And you can say, oh, it's a freshman roster. Well, last year was a freshman roster, and they were really good last year. They beat Duke, they beat Gonzaga, they beat Louisville, they made the Sweet 16. And now, like you said, like I said earlier, this year they're even more talented on paper. And last year, like a bunch of selfless guys that all they wanted to do is win. And then now it's like quite the opposite. So don't know the exact reasoning, but the good news is it's still very early on in the season. It's a good thing for Kentucky fans. This is not falling apart in March. They still have time to kind of figure this out, and hopefully they can, because they really, really need to.
One interesting thing, too, is they haven't been fully healthy with this roster. Obviously, you're looking at it, a lot of their offense. Jalen Lowe's a big key factor here. He hasn't been 100% healthy with the shoulder issues and everything, too. They're having Colin Chandler. They're having Denzel Aberdeen, guys like that. Not true point guards coming in, playing, having to initiate the offense and get teams into sets and stuff. It's going to be interesting to see what it looks like once Jalen Lowe comes back and the offense starts flowing through somebody who's got, who's a point guard. And then Jaden Quaintance, one of the best defensive players in the country. We don't know what he's going to look like when he comes back as well, coming off of a knee injury. Getting back to full speed. He's, one of the better defensive players out there, a draft prospect and all that. Quite possibly the most talented player on the roster. They haven't had either of those guys fully healthy this season yet. So that could be a little bit of, putting a square peg in a round hole right now, trying to figure it out as they go. But to Joe's point, this team has a lot of talent. A lot of pieces, a lot of guys who need to take steps in order to get this thing going. And that goes all the way down from the freshman Malachi Moreno, Jasper Johnson, all that, to the leaders that we aforementioned with Denzel Aberdeen, Colin Chandler, Mo Diabate, all those guys as well, who's also battling through some injuries too. So getting this roster fully healthy is a step, and it still leads to some ceiling as to what the top end of this team could look like with their ability come, SEC play and then tournament time as well. But for right now, there's just a lot of disarray and disconnect when it comes to what they're putting out there on the court.
I also think it's one of those things where you're going to get highly criticized because you have the highest paid roster in the country. And people say, oh, even without Jaden Quaintance, even without Jalen Lowe, you still have likely a $17 million roster. So it's like, why can't you figure it out with those guys? But here's the thing. Yes, it is a ton of money. Probably every starter on that team is making $2 million. If you just had to estimate based on a $22 million whole average, right? Mm-hmm. You factor all that in, and we have seen so many teams crash and burn with a ton of money. Just because you pay a kid $1 million, $2 million does not mean they're going to be good. And they have some really good players on this team. They're not meshing well right now, but honestly, it's one of the worst things that could happen, that number getting out there, that $22 million number out there, because it just creates a whole different kind of pressure that Kentucky basketball already has because of their brand.
For sure. And that was a local beat that put that number out there, wasn't it?
The Kentucky Herald.
Yeah, the local paper. The thing about this roster, though, that you look at it, it's a disconnect. Obviously, it's going to lead into the next conversation we're having, but also Kentucky in the past is, even with the amount of money that was reported spent on this roster, they don't have pros. This Kentucky roster is not filled with guys that are going to be NBA draft picks. That's stuff that we've become accustomed to seeing from Kentucky rosters in the past. But also, if you're sitting there talking about this amount of money being spent on the college game, this amount of stuff, the pro aspect, having guys that will play at the next level, is a very interesting thing that just this Kentucky roster has not had. You don't see guys that are going to be littered across the NBA, coming from this roster. And that's the very interesting thing. It's something that we're not used to with Kentucky. But also, when you hear this price tag, this $22 million price tag, now we don't know what other teams spent and all that type of stuff, but this is the most that I've heard being spent. To not have a lot of pros and all that type of stuff, it's just a very interesting way to piece it together, which means that if you're missing one or two of these pieces of the puzzle pieces to put the puzzle together, then that could be pretty detrimental into that aspect of it, without having like a pro to be able to lean on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, obviously, I think we all know Jaden Quaintance is
Quaintance
projected to obviously be a lottery pick. He'll be Pope's, I think, first lottery pick. And last year they did have Kobe Bryant and Amari Williams get drafted, albeit in the second round, I believe. Well,
last year, but I'm talking about this year's roster.
Oh, yeah, this year's roster is just Quaintance. He's the only. Yeah. Maybe Jasper Johnson had some early buzz, I think.
Maybe Malachi.
He's going to recover that.
They're multi. Like when you talk about Malachi and Jasper, they're not going to be guys you're looking at for the 26 and beyond.
Sure.
Probably more
Yeah.
fun. I think with Jamie's point, like outside of Jaden Quains, who hasn't played a game yet, uh, there's no one that you're looking at as like, take away. We're hearing a little bit, but I think he has to play better in order to get drafted.
Well, a lot better.
Yeah, a lot better.
He's been a major disappointment.
Exactly. And I think that's a like guys. First off, to me is obviously it's the efforts and energy to doing the little things. I think Otega Away has to play a lot better. To for this team to get right. Injuries. Mohamed Diabate, I think he's only played 5 games, right? Jalen Lowe has played 3 games, and Jaden Quains hasn't played any. But before we kind of get into our next segment, when Jaden Quains gets back, and obviously he's not going to just be able to, in my opinion, to be out that long, he's not going to come in and just be a complete difference maker right away. Maybe he could. But what does his team look like when Jaden gets back?
What Jaden Quains brings is the defensive anchor. I mean, you're sitting there looking at this team who's only creating 11 turnovers per game this season. What he brings, especially alongside Modi Diabate, is 2 guys who can defend across multiple spots on the back end of a defense. You can put them sliding their feet. You can drop them down and do a lot of coverage things with those 2 guys, namely Quains as well as the 5-man. A lot of interesting things there. So that's I think defensively is where it's at. He can face up a little bit. You can do some things with him, some DHO and some passing with him and all that. I don't know that the offense necessarily looks better. They're going to have to start making shots and have to figure out how they can get the spacing going. And offensively, they're going to need to be able to collapse the defense, pitch it out, and get some easy shots looking, because 31% from 3 is just not going to get the offense humming. Jaden Quains coming back helps on the defensive end of the floor. They're still going to have to figure out the offensive side.
Yeah, and he'll provide some rim protection as well, which is needed. Yeah,
and he's raw offensively, but like if he can just complete lobs, finish plays inside, and then the dunker spot, and kind of show some like you said, some DHO stuff or just straight line drive, and the defender's not really anticipating it and just get to the rim. If he can just kind of just provide some offense, some interior, like just being some level of threat, he'll be okay, even though that he's still raw on the offensive end. So to the next segment, we've been talking about Kentucky. Now, Jamie, yesterday, right? You put up your freshman power ranking. So talk about that. Where is it at right now going into this week?
Looking across, I mean, the freshmen have been the talking point of the entire basketball season, and it's been unbelievable to see these guys. You have 5-star guys with expectations coming in. You have guys that didn't have expectations playing their way into the national conversation. It's just been a beautiful thing to track so far. My top 5 that I had coming out yesterday, obviously I put out a top 10 power ranking that I'll put out every couple of weeks. Cam Boozer 1, Caleb Wilson 2, AJ Dybanta 3, Kingston Flemings 4, Koa Pete 5. Where the top 5 is to kind of how it played out. And then you get from kind of, I think Hans Steinbeck I have at number 6. Then after that at number 7, you go from 7 to about 20. And it could be, you could throw the names up in the air and come out in any order as to how it's going. But I do think that top 6 is kind of the first tier of guys: Boozer, Wilson, Dybanta, Flemings, Koa Pete, and Hans Steinbeck. I think those 6 guys are kind of you're taking a step out in front of the rest at this point right now in the season.
Heinz Steinbeck is someone that has been, like you said, been having a really good season. It hasn't been talked about a whole lot, but I remember seeing him in FIBA in the summer, and he played really well with that German squad. Jamie, give a breakdown of his game and what he brings to the table and why he's been so effective this freshman season.
He's averaging 18 points and 12 rebounds so far. So he's only played in 6 games, so he's missed 3 or 4 games. That he's averaging. Unbelievable rebounder. He's got a feel for just tracking the ball, seeing the ball, getting the ball. He's finished with a double-double, obviously at 18 and 12. Finished with a double-double in 5 of the 6 games that he's played. He's a fluid athlete. He's got great instincts. He's skilled, able to put the ball on the floor. He's also able to knock down shots and do all that. But what he does is when he plays the game, he is talented enough to give Washington a shot at every game that they play. He allows them to be a part of the game. And again, with his offensive capabilities and versatility, as you said, he was on that German team that played the U19 FIBA championship against the USA. Performed well all the way throughout that. Came over to the United States and hasn't slowed down in what he's able to do with his confidence and his toughness, but also his skill and feel for the game. He's somebody hanging out there in Washington that's definitely as he continues to play games and stay healthy. Could possibly even move up this list with the production that he's seeing, especially rebounding the basketball, but also expanding his offensive game, finishing at multiple levels.
Yeah, yeah, he's averaging almost 3 assists a game. And I was looking at his game versus UCLA, 11 of 12 from the field, almost 92% from field goal range. And I also wonder, like, I think a lot of the times, like some of those West Coast schools like Washington, Oregon, USC, UCLA, they're kind of like to some degree out of sight, out of mind. What if Hans Steinbeck was at Duke or Kentucky? Like if Kentucky was playing better, like how would we be talking about him? You know, like where would he be? I already know he's being talked about as a draft pick, but like where would he be on ESPN and just like all the talking points that you see? You know, that's something that I wonder.
Yeah, without question, and he's deserving of that. And I think even at Washington, he might still be able to be talented enough to earn those talking points as the season progresses. I mean, obviously, as we start to get into conference play here and everything like that, that conference is absolutely unequivocally loaded with talent. There's going to be some TV games, and I think that he has the talent and ability to become a talking point throughout the national landscape. We'll just see if it happens.
I think with him, you hearing like some mid first, potentially like late lottery consideration with him. I agree with you, Jamie. As the year goes by and as the season goes by and he's performing in conference and then they get into the NCAA tournament and he performs, I think you'll see his name just kind of keep rising on the draft boards. Because he's someone that you can see where that NBA, like where he can just kind of plug and just play on an NBA roster and be effective immediately. And then again, like these NBA guys, these scouts, these executives, like they're gonna want guys that, like, well, I guess where I'm coming from is he's gonna move up and he's gonna be talked about more because these NBA execs, they're not dumb. Not all of them. There's some that are, but they're all dumb. And someone like him fits in the NBA just fine. And I think you're going to hear more like potentially in the top 10 and more in that lottery in top 10 as the season goes on and he continues to perform.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, Ani, another one kind of down your way, too, who's just exploded since the last time we talked about the freshman, Kingston Flemings. Yeah. What he's done over these last couple of weeks, man, has just been astronomical. It seems to be getting more in his comfort zone, seems to be playing against his last game against Florida State, 8 steals, in that game, also going with 20 points and the assist and everything too. But there seems to be somebody whom I know you're very familiar with. We're all very familiar with coming from the high school, who's, Rivals #1 overall point guard in the class, but has really, really stepped up over these last couple of weeks into finding a comfort level with the top 10 team in the country.
Right. And I mean, when you look at Kingston, I remember you in your rankings, in your final rankings, you had him #1 point guard in the country, right? And now it's looking like he can potentially be the #1 point guard getting drafted.
Yeah.
Now that's in the consideration. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's the thing for Kingston, and he was our #1 point guard in the class for like the last year of the entire cycle. The thing with him that always stood out is what Joe and I would always talk about on this end of things was his ability as a point of attack. He's the guy who, with the ball in his hands, you couldn't stay in front of. He was always putting pressure, 2 feet in the paint, putting pressure, collapsing the defense, and making a play. But he also kept your ball handler out of the paint as well. So he did that better than anybody within the class in the cycle. And then he makes the reads when the defense collapses in the teeth of the defense. And the jump shot seems to be coming along very well here at the collegiate game. That's still going to be the question mark moving forward. Can that sustain the jump shooting? But he's over 50% from 3 right now, shooting over 60% from the field right now, just making great decisions with the ball. But he's really, really showing his ability to touch the paint regularly, make the efficient play, but also with the 8 steals that he had against Florida State, keeping the opposing team out. And as we know, the point guard, what they're able to dictate at the point of attack is special. What they're able to do, that's what they have to do, is be able to dictate what's happening at the point of attack, heating up the ball on both ends of the floor. That's what Kingston Flemings does best. And I think he's been showing that with Houston.
Yeah. Joe, what's your thoughts?
No, yeah, 100% agree with that. I keep going back to that that game that Houston had against Tennessee, where Tennessee just could not stop him. And Tennessee had one of the top defensive in the country. So that was the most impressive part for me, for a freshman to come in and do what he did to Tennessee. Houston did lose, but he had 25 points and shot some great shooting splits as well. He just couldn't be stopped. One freshman that I want to mention, and it's somebody that, like, I think we tend to talk about like 5-star guys and AJ DeBonstas, Cam Boozers, Darren Petersons of the world, Caleb Wilson's, guys like that. But kind of an unsung hero for this North Carolina team has been Derek Dixon these past couple of games. Obviously hitting the game winner against Kentucky last week, and then against Georgetown over the weekend had another really good game. And to be a freshman and to be that steady, to be just a kind of a calming presence on that roster, like, it wouldn't surprise me if he's starting by the end of the season. He's obviously getting an uptick in minutes now. Past 2 games, he's averaging about 25 minutes a game, but he's been so good for them. There was some talk coming out of the summer workouts and things that Derek Dixon was going to be, one of the key factors for North Carolina. But really impressed with what he's been able to do. Is kind of a guy that not many people were talking about, because he was ranked top 60 nationally in that senior class last year, and he's in a heck of a job. He's just so steady.
Yeah, and he's shooting 48% from three. And obviously, like, when we talk about guys even like Kingston, who's shooting 59% from three right now, it's probably not sustainable. Just like you said, Derek being reliable, being someone that they can play at the end, and he can still make shots and he can still make the right play. That's been really impressive. And even as a top 60 guy, like you say, they don't get talked about much, but I think that's a real good value to get someone outside the top 50, and he can finish games for you, and you're going to have him multiple years. I think that's a really good, like, high school pickup, someone that fits into the system right away. And he's a freshman, so he just kind of, once he got just to the speed and physicality and the game started slowing down for him, we're seeing him really thrive right now.
And it's really kind of been a perfect storm for him as well, because you have Seth Trimble getting hurt a couple weeks ago and everything, and then Derek Dix is able to come in, and he doesn't have the spotlight pressure on him because he's not having to play on the ball. They have Kyan Evans already, but a lot of what UNC does is through Henry Vassar and Caleb Wilson, another freshman that's having an unbelievable year. Yeah. So Derek Dix is able to pull gravity and get a lot of one-on-one matchups as opposed to, initiating the offense, bring the ball across half court, getting the team in the sets, worried about collapsing the defense. He's able to play. The game's able to slow down for him and play freely because of having Kyan Evans, but also having Caleb Wilson and the gravity that both Caleb Wilson and Henry Vassar pull. Both of those guys averaging 2.5 to 3 assists per game themselves as well. But the shooting capabilities and everything he's been these last couple games, couple huge momentum changing shots at Georgetown, and then obviously with Kentucky, what he's doing as well. He played with Nick Lewis in high school, another point guard. And all that, and he's just coming in as a guy who's shown that he can be an unbelievable complementary player while still getting his work done and playing efficient basketball. And it's been the stone cold aspect of his game has been very impressive.
That's a good way to describe it.
Yeah, the past couple of games, huge.
And talk about
huge for UNC.
Sorry to cut you off. And talk about the mental toughness and just the overall confidence to be able to come in and do that. Like, specifically in that game against Kentucky, in that final possession or two, as a freshman to do something like that, that's not something you see very, very often.
Yes. Right. 100%. So let's transition to the next step, and this is going to be fun. So the Field of 68, they posted a mock draft. Mm-hmm. There was a quote from an anonymous NBA executive, and he said, every time he's played against like-sized bigs, he can't finish. He dominates lesser competition. This is number one on Jamie's freshman power rankings, Cam Boozer. Interesting statement. I think whoever that NBA exec is, it doesn't even believe what he's saying.
Well, so I never read that article, but I feel like that's just a cherry-picked quote out of a larger, like a larger assessment. It's kind of one of those things as to where, yes, Cam Boozer in these games has struggled to score against guys that are like his size, but then you put a comma and continue the sentence. he has found a way to continue to produce in these games. You know what I'm saying? So two things can be 100% accurate at the same time, as to where he's had to figure out a way to score against guys that are big and athletic in high major games, and then he's figured out a way to score against guys that are big and athletic in high major games. So I feel like that that quote, while accurate, was something to kind of part of a larger assessment that was made. Obviously, I didn't read the article, so I don't know if that's accurate, but it feels like that could be the situation, because Cam Boozer, 6'8", maybe 6'9", not the most athletic person. Where he finds his advantages is through leverage. He's unbelievable at creating and finding leverage on the block. He's unbelievable at creating and finding leverage with the ball in his hands. He's unbelievable at creating and finding leverage against opponents. And that's how he continues to score, because he's always got the upper hand when it comes to the leverage game. He finds the angles. It just takes time to get there. The first half isn't going to be the same as the second half. Obviously, at this point in time right now in his high major games, he's shooting 45% from the field, 36% from three. In the low major games, that shoots up drastically when it comes to percentages, punching down on the lesser opponents, as the NBA exec says. But where that quote doesn't finish off at is that while he does struggle initially in those situations, he consistently finds a way, and he's done that throughout his entire career. He's always had those athletic, the burst, the twitch limitations, and he's always found a way to find the production. Eventually, as the game goes on, eventually as the situation goes on, and he's got John Shire putting him in unbelievable situations to be able to find those advantages as well on the offensive end of the floor. But yeah, while that quote has accuracy to it, I don't think it's the entirety of the lens when it comes to what's kind of what's being said.
So the full quote is, every time he's played against like-sized bigs, he can't finish. He dominates lesser competition. He'll be a better player than one or two of the guys ahead of him, and will find a way to be a good player in the NBA, but just doesn't have the upside. I can see him going from anywhere from 3 to 6.
Yeah, and I think that's about accurate. I think Cam Boozer is definitely a safe pick in the NBA draft, and I think there's more upside than people give credit. People want to give. I know he's coordinated. He's coordinated. He may not have a lot of vertical pop, but he's not a liability on the defensive end, because he knows how he positions himself well.
Angles and leverage.
Angles and leverage. Offensively, he's highly skilled. He can put the ball on the floor. He can make shots. I think there's upside in his shooting. I think like you say, he knows how to take advantage of the size advantage. And to me, in the NBA, what do we see a lot of? Switches, right? Especially when you talk about playoff basketball, they're doing a lot of switching. And I'm not saying he's going to be your number one player on an NBA roster on a title contending team. I mean, there's only a couple of those guys. You know what I mean? Like every year in the reality. But he's someone that can be, I think, potentially your second or third option, and you're contending for an NBA title. And I think if you're getting that at 3 to 6 in the NBA draft, you're happy as hell. Jamie, before the pod, we were talking about he has a high floor, right? Mm-hmm. And then I said, but the ceiling, I think, is still interesting to see. I still think he has a really high ceiling, because I think with someone at his size, with his IQ and his ability to adjust, he talked about, okay, first half looks second half looks a little bit different than the first. I think he's still young. He's still trying to figure things out. And I think as more skill as he gets, there's going to be more stuff in his offensive game he's going to unlock that will allow him, even though he doesn't have elite vertical pop, he's still going to be able to create space and score. And I think we still see that in the league. So he may not be your number one guy, and that's okay. Or he may. We really don't know. But I do think he's a reliable piece for someone that's trying to win at the next level in the NBA. And if I'm getting that in my top 5 pick, I mean, we've seen people make way wilder swings and they miss, right? So I think Cam a good pick, and I think he has a little bit higher ceiling than people are giving him, that people want to give him, because he doesn't have great vertical pop.
And when you look at it, when you look at the success he's had this year, a lot of that success has come off. He struggled a little bit with self-creation, putting the ball on the floor, like facing up, putting the ball on the floor, getting into his spots, one, but two, also around the basket, again, against bigger players when he's ISO'd out and all that type of stuff. There's been times where he's just not been able to score the basketball, getting his own rebound, pushing guys out of the way, and all that type of stuff off the offensive boards and all that. So that's going to be a very interesting piece of it, is the self-creation aspect, somebody who needs others in order to score the basketball at times as well. Where he is awesome at, something that's so unique for this Duke team as well, and I can see them, 10-0 right now, is this passing. I think he processes the game at an incredibly high rate. It's really neat to see the creativity Shire's been able to have, being able to run their offense through Cam Boozer, being an offensive hub with the basketball, either lining him up away from the basket and the elbows and playing some high-low with Pat and Gong, but also putting him on the block when the double team comes, passing away from it. While he's averaging 3 or so assists per game, he's leading Duke's team in assists. I bet his hockey assists go up even more because he comes, passes away from it, puts the defense in scramble mode. The next pass gets an open look at the basket. His ability to be an offensive hub for Duke this year is so unique. So while he's not able to necessarily consistently create advantages, with the ball from various levels, his ability to orchestrate the offense around him has been super interesting to be able to watch. And I do think I do agree with you, Ani, that while the limitations are there, while he can struggle one-on-one situations against, long and big guys, while he can struggle to create offensive advantages, I think his IQ, his understanding of leverage, his base strength, the understanding of angles, getting into somebody's body to get that little bit of that space to be able to finish. And gosh, on the offensive glass, I mean, even on the misses that he has against, he's able to wedge himself underneath and create the leverage to knock the other guy off balance, the potential shot blocker, to get that offensive rebound and finish at the glass and get the free throw, keep the efficiency high. When you look at the analytics of the game and what he's bringing, he leads the entire country in player efficiency, win shares, and box plus minus. His efficiency's there, the analytics are there, and all that stuff. So while you watch the game and you see what this NBA scout's talking about, you see that he does at times struggle to finish against length. The all-encompassing aspect of what he brings to the team, how he's able to elevate the floor of what this Duke team is, how this Duke team's able to play through him. And there comes a thing, obviously, the nation is just now coming to understand this. Joe, Ani, myself, we've known this about Cam Boozer for years now. When he's on the floor, you just think his team's going to win. It doesn't matter what the score is with 10 minutes to go, 5 minutes to go. When he's on the floor, 4 state championships, 3 gold medals, 3 Peach Jam championships. He's done it throughout his career. When he's on the floor, you think his team's got a chance. Somehow his team's going to win the game. And that's continuing here at Duke at 10-0 right now. So while, yes, what this NBA scout is saying has some accuracy to it, especially you look 3 of 12 against in the first game against Texas, the next high major game, 7 of 17. You're seeing that real time. His IQ, as you mentioned, Ani, is putting himself into positions to still continue to find success as the game wears on. And he figures it out. And he's got John Schreier on the sideline drawing up great plays and teammates around him, the spacing and all that type of stuff to put him in advantageous situations to where he's able to play off of others just as much as they're able to play off of him.
Joe, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's unfair to say like he might struggle a little bit more to score against like-size bigs, but the quote is every time he's played against like-size bigs, he can't finish. So the he can't finish part I feel is a little bit too harsh. When you look at the numbers, like, yes, some of his shooting, or, his percentages are a bit lower, but like games again, like their past 3 games have all been against really good opponents: Michigan State, Florida, and Arkansas. I mean, and he's shot relatively good percentages: 7 of 13 from Michigan State, 10 of 21 from Florida, which is one he struggled a little bit more in, but he still had 29 points against Florida's fantastic front court. And in Arkansas's best game, he was 13 of 18 with 35 points. So I understand, but I just don't think I fully agree with the part that he can't finish. I understand that he might struggle to finish at times against like-size bigs, but I think it's unfair to say that he can't finish against like-size bigs because he's averaged 25 points per game in those matchups.
And we got to also remember that the NBA game is more, there's more space, right? And there's obviously a defensive 3-second violation. So I do think he'll be okay. The college game is more condensed, right? Now, and to Jamie's point, in isolation versus those guys, there are moments where he does struggle, but I think he'll thrive in the NBA, like with the space and just the space that he's going to be able to operate in, and the fact that a big can't just camp in the paint when he is when he's isolated, and I think he'll be able to thrive in that. He'll be able to.
All right, let me ask you this. Kind of shifting gears here. You look at somebody like a Cam Boozer, and you've talked about his ceiling that he has and the floor and all that type of stuff. Then you also look at a Caleb Wilson, another freshman who's unbelievable, probably in the same conversation. He was for me, at least, in putting this thing together between Cam Boozer and Caleb Wilson as the number one overall freshman. Where do you see that on the NBA upside? Where do you see that as an NBA draft between Cam Boozer and Caleb Wilson specifically?
Which one would I pick more?
Yeah, which one do you like more looking toward the NBA?
Uh that's a good one. I think for
Because you have the floor of Boozer, but then you also have the ceiling of Wilson.
got Steele Wilson. I know Wilson's touch has been a topic of conversation, but I think he just so versatile and he just fits like the NBA, like the prototypical wing. Um, if I had to pick one, I probably would pick Caleb, to be honest with you. Um, he just fits that
I'm with you on that.
like I maybe this ain't a great comp, but like the Jalen Williams and like stuff like those big wings that have like real self-creation upside that can defend multiple spots. Where maybe he hasn't scratched his ceiling really, but like he's still very productive and you know where it's coming. Where I say Jalen Williams because I think Jalen Williams was drafted like 11 or he was kind of like a yeah, and then I think when you kind of seeing Caleb Wilson, you don't make that same mistake again. Like 10 teams or how many teams don't pass up on someone like this. I think because he's still productive, and I don't think he's even close to even tap into his ceiling. I think Cam Boozer again has a higher floor. Like where you can put him right away. I think Cam can still be. It's kind of for me. I just know like Caleb Wilson, guys like him are going to like they just can do so much on both ends.
Yeah.
Right. And I think when you talk about playoff basketball, that's what you're looking for. I think Cam Boozer is someone that is going to be really effective. He's going to help you win a lot of games. I think he's going to help you win a lot of games, but I do think you got to be very particular how you play and how you play him in order to maximize what maximize getting, Cam Boozer, getting the most out of Cam Boozer. You see what I'm saying? Like,
For sure.
you can't just kind of like I think you can kind of just throw Caleb Wilson in a lot of spots and then he's just going to be able to figure out because he can do so much. I think Cam, I think to your point where you're talking about like I think with the upside he's averaging 4 assists a game. I think he can be like the hub. If you're using him anything outside of that, are you getting the most out of him?
Yeah.
What are you getting out of him? So I think Cam's more specific how you have to play him, and Caleb, you can kind of just throw him out there. So
And I think that's a fascinating aspect of this year's freshman class is you have the analytics of something that you look at with Cam Boozer, who's just astronomically high in every analytical statistic that you have. But then you have the Caleb Wilson, the eye test of what Caleb Wilson gives and what he brings, who's also high in the analytics side of things too. He's top 10 in the country in box plus minus and win shares and player efficiency, averaging 19 and 10 double doubles. So it's just going to be fascinating. Yeah, AJ advanced it too with the eye tests, the analytics versus the eye tests. When you have and both very fundamental scouting sides of things when it comes to all of that as well. It's going to be a fascinating aspect, and it's going to spark great conversation. I feel like throughout this entire season. When it comes to ceiling versus floor, analytics versus eye test, when it comes to all this type of stuff with these freshmen and the depth of this freshman class. So this is going to be very exciting to see kind of how we're a third of the way through now to see how this continues to play out on this topic specifically.
And I think when you talk about like from an NBA side, I think it's going to be important where they get drafted. I mean, obviously it's going to be a team that's not going to be very good more than likely, but it's going to be important where they get drafted and if that team can really maximize. If they have really a good game plan and really can get the most out of them. I say Caleb, but if, we can look back, a few years from now, and Caleb probably could get. I'm not saying, I'm protecting myself. If I'm wrong, but I do like really like seeing it, like getting where you get drafted and in that front office and that coach, that's going to be important for them to see if they can really hit their ceiling.
No, 100%. I agree with you on Caleb Wilson. I think Caleb Wilson's two-way ability, his ability to defend, I think is kind of where he's really unique at. Flat his feet, he can shut down on the perimeter, switch down, be a rim protector, and all that stuff. Averaging almost 3 stocks per game, steals plus blocks, and here I think that brings the upside. But what you're seeing also on the offensive end of the floor, create advantages off the bounce, playing as a dunker spot, pulling gravity as a vertical floor spacer, the versatility there on both ends of the floor, and the production that he's coming with. I agree. NBA wise, I think Caleb Wilson fits a lot of different roles. Cam Boozer's a little bit more specific, but when it comes to college production, I think Cam Boozer's just, I mean, it's hard to ignore what he's been able to do, 23 a game, and how he's been able to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Joe, what's your thought?
Yeah, I think both of you have really good points. I think I agree with the whole aspect of, Caleb Wilson might have a higher ceiling and Cam Boozer might have a higher floor. It probably just depends on, like you said, which team drafts him and what the need is for that specific team. But I think either way, you can't necessarily go wrong. I see both of them having successful careers, long term in the NBA.
And we get the head-to-head twice this year, Duke versus UNC.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Unbelievable anticipation for those games.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun to watch, and I can see both of them guarding each other. Like I see I'm sure that's gonna be
former AAU teammates.
Right.
True. I forgot about that.
Any closing thoughts, guys, before we wind down?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm just excited we're still in the early part of the season. It's fun because it's like you get these, you kind of make these too early predictions for a lot of these teams. It's like, oh, this team's really good. And then next thing you know, you look up and we're like halfway through the play and they're like, oh, wow, they suck. Or vice versa. Like hopefully Kentucky can put it together. And but college basketball, I feel like it's at its peak right now. It's never been better with just the overall talent and due to NIL players staying around longer than ever, and just this freshman class has been amazing. It's been awesome to see so far.
Yeah, I agree, Joe. The parity right now, the unbelievable amounts of talent right now. You have NBA talent, you have college talent. The talent is dispersed throughout the entirety of it. I mean, there could be any number of teams that win the NCAA tournament, and right now we just don't know who that top tier of teams is yet because nobody's stepped out. You look at 8 different polls, and I'm sure there's 5 different teams that are at number 1 throughout the thing. So yeah, a lot of excitement, a lot of long ways to go, and also let's not forget high school season. Lots of still uncommitted guys coming as well too. So there should be some fun commitments and all that too. So make sure you stay tuned to the intel as well coming from rivals.
Absolutely. Make sure you stay tuned to that. I'm just excited that college basketball, I feel like it's in a great place where the product we're seeing on the court. I think this is one of the better seasons that we've seen in a while. So I'm excited about the product on the floor right now. I'm excited about kind of seeing where these these uncommitted guys are going. And yeah, I'm just waiting to see. It's December. It's a long road in this high school and these college seasons. So make sure you stay tuned next Gen Pod. We'll see you guys soon.